Welcome to Everything Life Coaching. I'm John Kim.
And I'm Noelle Cordeaux. We are the founders of JRNI Coaching.
We're super passionate about all things coaching and want to share what we've learned from over a decade of coaching and training over 1,000 life coaches.
Dive deep into a more meaningful career, find freedom, and make an impact on the world around you.
On today's episode, we're going to talk about a coaching framework versus intervention versus technique. This is what I call a meat and potatoes episode. It's going to be loaded with lots of protein. Noelle?
and carbohydrates. And carbohydrates too.
Also, maybe I shouldn't say meat and potatoes. There's a lot of vegetarians out there, a lot of vegans. Maybe I need to just say that it's going to be a good one.
One of my good friends calls meals when she doesn't really feel like cooking anything fancy sustenance dinners. Perhaps
it's a big word. I don't think I could say that word.
Sustenance. This is a sustenance podcast.
It just doesn't have the ring to it. Anyway.
Fair. That's fair. So coaching frameworks, techniques, and interventions are all different things that coaches use to do their jobs. And it's important to have at least a cursory understanding of what each of them is so that you understand not only what you need to do to work as a coach, but also where you might be able to grow and expand your skill set as a coach, because there are so many cool frameworks, techniques, and interventions out there.
Yeah. Let's start with a framework. What is a framework?
Frameworks are fun. Frameworks are the arc that a coach uses to move a client from point A to point B on a path of inquiry. And when I break this down, it could be the arc of questioning that you use, or it could be the theoretical stages that someone moves to in terms of their growing awareness. So let's take each of those two examples. One of the things that we teach in the intensive is the hallway coaching conversation, which I think is a great introduction for people to coaching. It's often what I use the most when I need to explain what coaching is and how you do it. And the hallway coaching conversation is typically for colleagues when there's a problem to be solved and somebody needs to talk something through really quickly. And so that might look like, John, you saying, Noelle, I have this thing. Can you coach me real quick? I need a coaching conversation. Sure. So John, we're going to get into some coaching. There's an expectation of confidentiality. Do you agree? I agree. And the 3 questions that I'm going to use to work you through figuring out your own solution is: where are you now? Where do you want to be? And what's getting in the way?
I've always wondered why they call this the hallway conversation. The hallway reminds me of like locker rooms and high school chat. Like, is it because these questions kind of get straight to the point? Why is it called the hallway? Do you know?
Yeah, I think it's because thinking of like a traditional office environment where people have offices, and you might, need to grab somebody out of their office and just say, hey, can I grab you real quick?
Right.
There's something I need to work through. So this can be done while you're walking down a hallway with someone.
Yeah, I love how simple and potent these questions are. I mean, it's just basically, where are you now? Where are you going? What's getting in the way? Yeah, and what's getting in the way seems to be the one that's going to open doors as far as coaching the person.
Oh, hell yeah. And that piece, and with each of the stages of a framework, what the coach does when they're in session with a client is really dice through them. So just even the setup of where are you now, that requires some honesty and consideration of maybe discomfort, maybe blind spots, and where do you want to be? That's where we paint the future vision. And the future vision is what coaches use to hold folks accountable for where they're going. And so, what's getting in the way not only gives us the action steps, but that's where grit needs to be deployed. Because if you don't solve what's getting in the way, what is the cost opportunity? What's the consequence if you never get to where you want to be?
The universal answer for what's getting in the way these days, I think, is COVID.
Yeah, right. It is. So then, let's move to a different kind of framework, which I like for times like this of kind of, universal stuckness, because not everything in life and not everything in coaching is solution oriented and action oriented. Sometimes we really are talking about states of being. And one of the things that I've personally been working on a lot with my own client base is the relationship that folks have with themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. Absolutely.
Huge. Yeah. So a framework that I like to use is another simple one. It's 3 steps. And for me working as a coach, sometimes I share this with clients, but often I don't, because the actualization of it is bigger than someone can contextualize at the outset. And it comes from the world of life design, which comes from Stanford University, which comes from the technical avenue of building your way forward with technology or sculpture. And the 3 stages, the framework itself is subject, observer, and designer. So when someone comes into the space of coaching, they're often subject to their lives. They're subject to the social construction of the world around them. They're subject to limiting beliefs. And then when they move to the position of observer, that's when you've been using coaching techniques and interventions with your client, and your client begins to pick up on the tools of coaching, and they begin to observe through trial and error and experimentation and reflection what happens when you move the pieces of your life around, and clients begin to prove to themselves that their lives are in fact malleable. And then once that happens, clients move to an elevated state of consciousness where they come to believe that they're capable of authoring their own lives. And that's when the fun begins. That's when people really start moving around big boulders in their lives and taking kind of a machete to the weeds.
Yeah, I love that. And I think when you move into the observer stage or that stage, you're getting out of the way of yourself
Yeah.
because you're able to observe instead of be in the trenches, internalize, all of that. So it seems like when you're observing, your lenses are there's distance and your lenses are clearer. And then the last stage, is when things tip and you're actually able to uh, redesign your life.
Yeah, and I want to explain a little bit. It's not that when you run these frameworks with clients that they can't, actualize where they're going. It's just that when you sit down with somebody and say, "Here's what we're going to do. You're going to go through these 3 phases, and this is how I work as a coach." We live in a task-oriented, checklist-oriented society. The natural inclination of the client is going to be to try to perform and try to please the coach and get to that observer state right away. And that's not cognitively possible without experimentation, learning, and reflection. So you can't move that fast through the stages. You can't will yourself into observation. You have to do it experientially.
Can you also bounce back and forth? Like, is it linear or is it like the stages of grief where it's kind of a scribbly line and you bounce back and forth from like, denial to acceptance to bargaining to, all of that?
It
Or
really
is it straightforward?
depends.
Is it linear?
I mean, it really depends on what your client is up to. What I've seen happen over the years is that it kind of goes in layers and plateaus, where someone might come into the space of coaching and have a fitness goal, and they're able to, through trial and error and experimentation figure out what works for them and transform their bodies. And so now they know that they're capable of transforming. And so then they begin looking around and saying, well, what else? What else can I do? Oh, I might want to transform my relationship. I might want to transform my career. I might want to keep elevating and elevating and elevating. And obviously that's what we want for everyone, is to keep elevating through all of the different facets of their life.
Right.
It takes a whole lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's easier said than done. Let's get to the
Yes.
next one, which is a coaching technique.
Yeah. So coaching technique is mostly what you will learn in coach training. And coaching technique is the fundamental how to of a session, where obviously coming into a coaching relationship, you set up confidentiality, you set goals, you set terms for working together. And as you go through session after session, you use coaching technique to enact the session itself. This is questioning, the art of questioning. Asking questions itself is a coaching technique, and there's a science to it. For example, the word what, WHAT, is the most effective way to ask a question of someone, juxtaposed against why. Because when we say, well, why did you do that? Or why do you think this? Or why do you feel that? People naturally get defensive. And when you say what, and I think it has to do with assonance as well, the drop A is just a nicer sound. It opens people up more to consideration.
Mm, that's really interesting. Subtle, but I think also the a coaching technique is what separates people who are just great at giving advice, people who are, that person in your group of friends that everyone comes to. The difference between that person and a professional coach, someone who's
Mhm.
now coaching, not just, being giving someone their ear or just advice.
Very much so. And as you progress in your competency as a coach, you also deepen your relationship with coaching technique. Something that I think is absolutely fascinating is the way that coaches deepen their relationship with active listening. And so much of deepening your relationship with active listening relies on your ability to drop fully into your body as a coach and not only listen with your full body and all of your senses, but to learn how to listen with your intuition as well. And then have enough confidence to report out to your clients when you experience intuitive hits or bodily sensations.
Coaching interventions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a coaching intervention is it's kind of a coaching intervention is an experience or an exercise that a coach uses to either help a client understand themselves or to understand the client more deeply. And usually it's a combination of the two. So, a great example of a coaching intervention is a narrative writing exercise. I've been using narrative writing exercises a lot recently. And for whatever reason, a lot of my clients just tend to flow with what they're working on. And so I've asked three clients recently to do the same exercise. And the exercise that I asked them to do, I made up myself, and it's a coaching intervention. And I said to each client, "Would you do me a favor and sit down and write a letter to your future lover that is an instruction guide on how you need to be loved?"
Ooh, I love that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so that exercise, that intervention, what I'm asking of the client is to truly explore their needs, and not only explore their needs, but to get clear on what they're going to need to communicate to another person in order to be loved and treated in a relationship the way that they want to be loved and treated in a relationship. Another coaching intervention is something like power poses, which I've had a coach do with me in session, where I was
Mm-hmm.
experiencing a lot of anxiety. I had stuck energy in my body, and my coach said, "Hey, would you mind moving around, during our session? I'd like to walk you through a series of different stances to find the position in which you feel most stable and grounded. And from there, we can talk about how you want to wield your energy." So that was an intervention that we did in session, where I got information about what was going on in my body and able to pull it forward.
Can the coach herself be the intervention? Who she is, her story, her angle, her perspective. Can a human being actually be the intervention? Is that too abstract? Me saying that.
Ah, what do you think? Well, I mean,
I think yes. I think we are all catalysts in that way. I think that I believe in humans colliding, and there's an exchange, and both take something away from that exchange. And so I think we can be just by being ourselves, we can be the intervention.
okay.
Yeah,
I think you sold me on it. I think
yeah,
you sold me on it. And I'll give an example to kind of bring it home. Have you ever had an experience where you've had a deep connection with someone and just their mere presence is soothing for you?
sure. Yeah, you,
Yeah.
you in my
Oh,
life. Yeah,
yay. Awesome.
yeah.
So dear listeners, I am John's walking, living coaching intervention.
Yes, yes, that is true.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, when we look back at our lives, we don't remember. I mean, maybe we do. We don't remember the conversations. We remember what we took away in our state, and at least for me, when I think about the people that have changed my life, it wasn't so much what they said; it was who they were, and in our kind of collision at the time in our relationship, and I think there's an element to that to coaching as well.
I agree.
Yeah,
I totally agree. And it's a lot of times it's that comforting presence, it's the strength your coach brings, it's the belief in you. And that can be enough of an intervention to give someone hope, which
yeah,
is the whole point of coaching.
yeah. Well, thank you for listening, and hopefully, we shed some light as far as what a coaching framework is and how that differs from an intervention and how they differ from a technique. And this episode is it starts with an S. What did you call it? It's not substance.
Sustenance.
Sustenance.
Su-
Yes.
Sustenance. This is the sustenance. And, all of this is fun. So if you're considering coaching, come see us. We'd love to have you in our intensive. And, this is where you get to deepen your craft as a coach.
Right.
And it's such a rich field of study. I look forward to learning whenever I take on something new because it truly is limitless.
Yeah, and also I think that this episode proves that coaching, that there's science to it. It's not just people calling themselves a coach and charging money and giving advice. So coaching is more than that, and this episode is a good example of that.
I think so. Thank you for the conversation.
Yeah. All right. Be well. Thanks for listening to Everything Life Coaching. If you're feeling the draw to become a coach, head to journey.co/everything to explore a new career that brings fulfillment, gives you a true sense of purpose, and a strong community to do it in. We created JRNI Coaching to equip you with the tools, training, and community you need to attain your goals.
Join JRNI Coaching and begin your journey towards personal freedom and a transformative state of growth today. That's JRNI.co/everything.